and the Iraqi police, they're supposed to be on our side. And when you see them shoulder their weapon and start sending rounds in your direction, you're kind of faced with a dilemma. Like, what do you do? They're supposed to be on the same team. And so it was on. And the machine gunners, they did the best they could in an impossible situation. You know, what's crazy about it is I was going to get on every machine gunner's case about how they didn't shoot enough, about how they didn't fire enough, because they were being very selective. And that's why I was so shocked that this was even a big ordeal, because there was one point when we were like leaving the circle. The vehicle that I was in, it got shot up so bad, rounds skipped off the ground and hit the axle and went up through the radiator. And so the coolant is leaking out within 2 minutes of us being at this stationary position. And the medic that's in the vehicle in front of us, he calls out, he's like, "Hey, y'all are leaking fluid." And we're like, "Roger that." And then the vehicle cuts off. So we're dead in the water. It won't crank.
Battle Line podcast. You guys are not going to want to miss this. This is a action-packed interview with Nick Slatten, Army Airborne veteran, but most importantly, he was there at the Neisser Square incident as a Blackwater contractor, given life in prison and then pardoned by President Trump in December of 2020, along with other guys. We get into all of that. Before we get into this, though, you know what I wanted to say? I mentioned last week that I was at the team house party, and I didn't get a chance to say this, though. I don't remember the guy's name, and the reason I mention this, we're about to talk Bub's Naturals a little bit, but I ran into a guy there who I apparently met a while back and who was actually at one of the old books, early book signings for the Red Circle of Brandon Webb. And when he was doing those early book signings, someone who was there, none other than Glenn Bob Doherty. And he spoke about that, he knew him from the book, from reading the Red Circle. And he said everything. This is what he said to me. He said everything that's ever said about Glenn Doherty, that he made you feel like, you were his best friend, like you knew the guy for years. He's like, that's how I felt getting to know him. So I wanted to mention that before we even talk Bubs, the namesake of Bubs Naturals, because I think Sean would appreciate hearing that. That's still to this day, guys who just met him at a book signing for 5 minutes rave about the man.
Yeah, he was a good dude. I mean, and I wasn't one of his best friends or anything. We did one deployment together in Tripoli, and it just was a great guy. And that's all I got the feeling. You can usually tell when a dude comes in with an ego and comes in with the insecurities and thinks he's cooler than what he is, and a guy that actually knows his shit and is just laid back, but you want him there by your side. That was Bub. And yeah, how I knew he was a good dude. He was the only guy in Tripoli on that GRS team that would sit and watch Black Dynamite with me and laugh. I was the only. I was like, nobody, no, everybody hated that movie, and he was the only one that would come and we'd laugh together.
And I,
So
I
that
haven't
said a
watched
lot.
13 Hours in a while, but that's in the movie, right?
No, we were watching Tropic Thunder. That's something me and Boone, I just would turn it on all the time. And
But
when
isn't
I'm
that a scene in the movie? You guys watching the movie, right?
watching Tropic Thunder, no,
Oh,
that's me and Boone when we were in
okay.
Benghazi.
I'll
No, this was
truthfully, I haven't seen
yeah.
13 Hours in years,
No,
so I
no.
mean,
Yeah,
I'm
this
racking
was
my brain here. But the point being,
this was before we were all the way in Tripoli. I worked
gotcha.
before.
Okay. Well, the point being, Glenn Bub Doherty is the namesake of Bub's Naturals, and they give
Yes.
10% back of all profits to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. So, keep his legacy alive, his memory alive, and also check out the most kick-ass products out
Yeah.
there for supplementation: collagen protein, apple cider vinegar gummies, MCT oil powder. All of these are great for digestive health, for post workout protein. You can learn more when you go to bubsnaturals.com and use the promo code BATTLELINE. You'll get 20% off. That's bubsnaturals.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE for 20% off. And these are supplements that we both stand behind. Also, this show is sponsored by someone you haven't heard from in a while, but we're excited to work with again. Great friends of the show, Pamax Tactical. Pamax Tactical is a law enforcement owned and operated company based in Florida that proudly manufactures 100% USA made products. Pamax Tactical has several unique products, including their Lion Blank fire device, used as a safer and reusable, cost-effective alternative for breaching and training for both civilian and law enforcement applications. The device uses several types of blank cartridges and is used extensively in training environments, including canine training, and as a way to induce stress on the range. And you've used these on the range.
No, and they're fantastic. And obviously, people are starting to figure out that this is more cost effective than the normal flashbangs that you use. They're more effective, and you can use different calibers. So you can intensify the stress levels, which you can't do with a standard flashbang that we used to use in training, or arty simulators that we used to use. So they check them out. The company's doing extremely well because they have a tremendous product, and they put their hearts and minds into it, but they also put the science into it to make it better than what we used to have in the past. So check those guys out. If you are in law enforcement and you need a training device, use it. Get rid of your arty simulators, get rid of your old flashbangs, and start using the Paymax Tactical. Start using that, and you'll see that it's a world difference. And who doesn't like saving money? It's going to save your department money.
Absolutely. So in addition to their Lion device, Pamax Tactical has produced several products, including their Hades hybrid muzzle devices line, RIPAR ambidextrous charging handles, X-slick coated bolt carrier groups, pin and weld uppers, and many more. And stuff that I had to tell Maxon we just can't talk about on YouTube. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Things that go pew pew that we will get kicked off of YouTube for talking about. But you can check it all out at their website. All Pamax Tactical product is 100% USA made and backed with a lifetime warranty. You can find out more about the product they offer by visiting their website at pmtactical.com. Use the coupon code TANTO and spell it right, TANTO, at checkout for 15% off your order. pmtactical.com, coupon code TANTO, TANTO. Let's get right into Nick Slatten.
From Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
The Switch is on Battle Line Podcast. We have a very special guest, Nick Slatten, Army Airborne veteran, Blackwater contractor, pardoned by President Trump, as any of you guys watching this know, in December of 2020, part of the Nicer Square incident from 2007, which Nick was originally sentenced to life in prison for. And if it wasn't for that pardon, we wouldn't be speaking with you today. I told Nick before we even recorded, before we even did the interview, I want to ask some hard questions because I know there's going to be people watching this and they have preconceived notions of what went down and they want to hear your story. And actually, before you even get into your story, I remember Chris was asking me this and I wasn't even sure. Is this like the first long form interview you've had the opportunity to do since being pardoned?
No, sir. I was on the Sean Ryan show. But
no, okay. Well, that's huge then. So yeah.
Cut out with that sir bullshit. Come on, man.
Yeah, calling me
man.
sir is hilarious.
Exactly. You know that. I mean, I know I was a little bit older than you back in the day, but now you're making me feel like ancient. So knock that crap off. Yeah, that stuff. Sean may make you say that, which that's kind of a douchebag thing to do. And I hope Sean's lit. No, Sean's a good dude, but we don't do that here. So there ain't no sir unless you really feel like you can't hold it back. But I know where you're from, and I know that's the proper way, and you were raised the right way. But here it's friends here, man. Ian may ask some hard questions, but they're not that hard. Come on, man. We're gonna treat you right, and we want to hear the story. I want to hear the story, even though I've heard it from a few, and I've heard it from some of the guys that responded, and I'm still friends with, and then some of the guys on your team unofficially. But here, this is for you. This is for you to say, hey, this is what happened. Because, in my opinion, in having to deal with the government myself, I think you guys got a raw deal. And of course, and I wish I tried, bro. I tried to find my shirt too. I could not find my Raven 23 release 4 shirt. I somewhere. So sorry, I'm not wearing that today. But yeah. So here, just relax, talk, and let's tell the world what you want people to hear, and from your perspective, since we have this hour or so to get it in there, because I believe you. Yeah, I believe you weren't given the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. Let's get into
I was going to say, if it's okay, I think, because we'll get into it, but I think what would be good to start off with is, you going into the military. I know you have a long family history of military service. So yeah, let's start from there. But prior to Blackwater, prior to Nicer Square, all of that, where did it all begin for you?
Well, I just want to say, first off, God is good. Yeah. And if you put Jesus, anything's possible. Like, I want to start it off with that, on a good note.
Of course, man. I mean, look at the shirt. Look at the shirt. Crucifix, can't see it, but you got to keep your faith even through the hard times. But yeah, please preach on, man. Preach on, my brother.
So I started off, joined the infantry, and ended up at the 82nd Airborne in a line infantry unit, and was deployed to the Sunni Triangle. And so we were basically involved in the roundup of all of Saddam's henchmen, that were a part of the Ba'ath Party. And so we just did a lot of raids and captured key personnel, specific people who was handed down to us from the intel community. Yeah. And yeah, it was like a 19-year-old's dream infantry deployment.
What years were that? Was that 05, and then you came in Blackwater after that, right?
03 to 04 was.
Yes, got you.
Sorry, sir, again.
Man, son of a bitch, man. I tell you what, you can't take the discipline out of a disciplined individual, can you? You just can't do it. But so you went, airborne school. You went to the line unit, but you're still part of the parachute infantry regiment there at 82nd, right? And that's and living there in Vietnam. And how many years did you do, like a 4-year tour? And that was, or had you extended out? You started in the 90s and gone on 8-year tour?
4 years.
4 years. How was that? At 82nd, aside from the strip clubs and stuff that they used to have at Vietnam, aside from all that fun stuff, how was that? And were you the deployments you enjoyed, but being there at 82nd, and it can be a rough place just because it's so big, and you get some great people over there, but you get some dirtbag, just like you do any unit. Even we had those at Range Battalion too. We had outstanding guys, but you get a dirtbag like me every once in a while there. So, but how was that getting through there? And did you want to extend, or was it like, oh man, the contracting world's coming? Because at that time, when you're leaving, the contracting world, I mean, I got in the early, and it was paying good money. It was exploding. I mean, there was fun stuff going on. Or did you, was it just something that you're like an injury or something that you had I got to go contract now because I can't stay in the military? Was that your decision? Like, man, I'm seeing it. I'm going to be a PMC, and you moved out smartly that way?
Well, if you would ask me, gearing up for my first tour, if I wanted to reenlist, I would have reenlisted for 20 years, because all we did was, grenade range, CQB, shooting, barrels out of guns all day long. And so I was like, yeah, the Army, this is what I signed up to do. And then when you get back from war, they want to give you medals and stuff. And I was like, nah, this ain't for me, kind of thing. And then we got a second deployment up to the Kurdish region.
Sure.
Because they thought the Iranians were going to do some insurgent activity up there. And of course, when we showed up, they backed off. And so it was basically just a peacekeeping mission. So I was looking to go SF, and my platoon sergeant was talking to me about that. I was going to put in my SF packet. And another previous platoon sergeant who I highly regarded, he said, forget all that. What's your end goal? And I told him, I want to work for the agency as a sniper. And he said, well, you need to go to be a contractor. I didn't even know what a contractor was. And so I got picked up by Triple Canopy first, and then they lost their contract. And so Black called me shortly thereafter, and I went through their vetting process. And it was the best training I had ever had, you know, as far as you have high level SEALs, high level team guys, you have high level Green Berets that are the instructors. So it's like, you know, and I was probably 22 at the time. So I was just in heaven, you know, because it was like being in the military without any of the dumb stuff. You know, it was just like
without any of the stupid rules that just really actually slow things down, the red tape. And you probably went there when I was running the private training center out for the GRS guys. I bet we crossed. I even saw you, and you're probably hanging with you. That's when Andy and Pat and those guys were all running the high threat. Was it called high threat protection training at that time, or had it gone to the what was it? What was the other moniker it was called when it was state? It went from state threat, Department of State high threat protection to whips. Whips was it was a whips contract to that. That's what it was. And well, you know, doing that. And did you get any more deployments as far as outside of Kurdistan? When you're in Kurdistan, you going to Kirkuk or Mosul? Is that where you're stepping off from, or you're stepping off from Suleimani or Erbil? And it can get kind of boring in Kurdistan because it is relatively safe. The Kurds kind of had their shit together a little bit, but
we were way out there, man. We were up by the mountains of the Iranian border.
So you're all the way past Suleimania. You're way up in, right on. Wow. Yeah.
There was a intel that came down that, you know, Iranian forces were going to take over that area because they were weak. You know, they didn't have a very big militia there. So basically, forced their militia and nothing happened. It was basically like, I don't know, like pre-ranger or something, you know?
Like, so you're just up there. I do remember us having to overwatch the when I was with GRS and we worked in Suli, having to overwatch that area up, and I don't even remember what it's called. But what was the base up there? So were you just doing PT and sucking up there, being miserable for 6 months, or were you up there for a year? How long was that?
It was about a 5-month deployment, but basically all was basically VSO operations because those people are friendly to us. And so, you know, we're conducting like what we think are combat operations, and we go up in these villages and I'm leading point, and a woman comes out, you know, and she's got a tea kettle and she sets it on the fire. And I'm like, where are we at? You know, like the very first time on my first tour in the Sunni Triangle that we went out, I was in, we went right, Bravo Company went left, Bravo Company got blown up. So it was just like night and day difference, you know.
No, I do. The Kurds and the Peshmerga really did it. If we gave them armor and an Air Force, they would have wiped out all the bad guys for us, man. We just won't give it to them because of Turkey and because of Iran. But yeah, the Pesh and the Kurds, it is different. I remember because I worked up there as well. I worked in all that, all the way from the other side, the Syrian side, to the Iranian side in the main city, and it was permissive. I mean, there was CI stuff going on, but I could go get pizza, go down to Erbil and go drive go-karts and get pizza if I wanted to outside of Ankara and then go back in for the. So it was completely different. And I bet for a fire breather like yourself, you know, being 22, 23 at the time, yeah, it was probably just boring as shit. And you're just like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, it was definitely a morale killer, but now looking back, I'm glad because I would have thought all Iraqis hate Americans had I not had that tour. So
yeah,
looking, it was beneficial for me that I could tell that there were some that actually wanted us there, so that it was good.
Yeah. So getting into, you know, the Blackwater stuff, as you said, you didn't know much about contracting prior. Blackwater wasn't this infamous company that all of us know now. I mean, I think everybody, when they hear the name Blackwater, they're going to have an opinion of it one way or another. So what were your first initial feelings about Blackwater getting put in, you know, contracting with them?
I was just impressed at the size of the facility and the quality of the leadership that was training us. And at first it was just vetting. It was like basically you show up, you have to qualify on all these weapon systems, all the way like Glock, M4, 249,
Yeah.
shotgun, AK-47, like 203 grenade launcher. They had all kinds of weapon systems you had to qual on. And then once you passed all those vetting processes, and then they had some physical standards as well, like bench press and running and um, stuff like that. After that, they trained you in PSD. I was just a regular infantry sniper, so I didn't know anything about personal security details. That was way outside my wheelhouse. So basically, the rest of the course was dedicated to training you how to do that. So,
and it did change a ton from when I went through in 03 or 2000. It was class 1, and it was a be honest, it was a cluster F. It was SEALs and Rangers and Delta and SF guys fighting constantly because nobody wanted to listen to each other. And you're right, it did. And when you went through a couple of years, it did streamline itself. But I think a lot of it too is a lot of those guys, there wasn't a lot of experience in the instructor cadre at that time. Guys had done one trip, and that's when Helveston got hung from Fallujah from the bridge, and and then they come back and they think they can teach. And by 2005, we'd done so many trips that we like, okay, now we're getting it. We understand what we're trying to do. And it did. I thought I agree with you. And you're right. I agree with you. The training got better, but you're right. The facility also, it went from when I was there to one where it just had that big tower in the middle where the armory was and the DFAC was, to just a huge facility with the driving track, and it was all self-contained. And I did like Eric. I said Eric had his faults, and he had some guys around him that were pieces of trash, but I think Eric really gave a crap about us. And I don't know. I guess that's a question for you. Did you feel the same way? And you don't have to agree with me. I mean, Eric, I was around Eric a little bit, protecting his family too, and got to know him pretty well, just even in Tyson's. But some guys didn't like him, but I really did feel like, even though with his little quirks, he did really care about us, and he gave us what we needed and went above and beyond. But what was your feeling before Nicer Square, and what was your feeling after with how Eric took care of you or didn't take care of you?
I think he took care of us to the best of his ability. Like you said, I think that by the time I was blessed, by the time I got to Blackwater, like you said, it was organized.
It was.
We had optics on our weapons. My SR-25, I think it had 5 rounds logged through it. So I had a brand new SR-25.
Wow.
A brand new M4 A1 with an ACOG with a 203 on the bottom of it. So it was like we had the best equipment that we could have for fighting in Baghdad. So it was definitely had a ball.
It did. It was different from us going and trading weapons with DynCorp because we didn't have enough guns, and with iron sights. That's like, who's coming in? Hey, Team 5's coming in. Well, let me get over here. Get over here, LR. Let me get your M4, man. I don't have anything, but it did. And you're right. So, Ian, and I don't want to jump ahead too, because I'm kind of
whatever you think we should get to,
biting at just because of and I want to get as much as possible. But what trip were you on when the Nicer Square incident happened, when Raven 23, what took place? I mean, how was that your first contract trip? Was it your second? Had you been there and extended like a lot of us do? A lot of us enjoyed it, and we stayed. We would extend through our leaves, and Eric paid us handsomely for that, which it was the right thing to do. But how many trips had you done, or was that your first trip, Nick, when all that took place?
So it was a progression. I don't know if you remember, but 2007 was the bloodiest year.
Yeah.
And that just so happened when I show up at the end of 2006. Then January 23rd happens. That's where they shoot down one of our helicopters, kill 5 of our guys. And I was on that Raven 2-3 TST team, and we went to recover our fallen comrades.
I remember Casey and I were Ranger Battalion buddies, and Ron Johnston was a buddy from the early days as well. And now I know War Baby had been there forever as well. I remember that. And talk about that. A lot of people forget about that, and that was pretty brutal. Art Laguna, Dan's little brother, getting shot down. Yeah. Talk about
Actually,
that if you can.
I actually went through whips with Art. You know how the pilots go through the
Yeah.
first little part,
Yeah. Yep.
but he was a great man. It was, I think it was the week before at that same venue, a man came up to the principal, and of course he stopped, by the point man, and he's trying to get to the principal. He's like, I really need to talk to her. And like, what do you need? And he's like, I really need to give her my business card. And he had his card out. So the guy just takes it and he looks on the back of it and it says, do not bring her back here. They want to cut her head off and film it. And so, that got passed up the chain, and she wanted to do another meeting the same time next week. And then January 23rd was the result of it. They first received contact on venue, and our task was to extract the principal team. They had her loaded up in their Suburbans and they were leaving, and we got ambushed and our tire got shot out. And so we fought our way through the ambush, and we found an easily defensible position, executed a tire change. And then by the time we had executed tire change, we get a new mission on the radio that a helicopter's been shot down. And the last grid they gave us was in the river. So we're like, this bird crashed in the river. And yeah. I think it was Alfadal neighborhood. And that's pretty rough place, So it's all cul-de-sacs. So it's dead end roads. So you're just driving down these dead end roads, getting lit up, looking for this bird. And then you got to turn around and drive right back through. So it was about 5 ambushes that we fought through. Some guys will tell you it was 12 ambushes, but I remember 5. So we were shot all to pieces by the time we got there. And, if it hadn't been for the Army, we would all got killed, because there was an estimated force of close to 1,000 on the ground is what they said. And the Apache helicopters saved our lives. Like I remember there was one point in the gunfight, we fought for 3.5 hours to recover the bodies. And there was one point in the gunfight, I was on the 240, and there was a round that cracks off. It hits in the middle of the street, and then a round cracks off and it hits my vehicle. And I'm like, he's 800 yards away in this building. I think he's on the 3rd floor, right? So I'm just laying down on the 3rd floor, and I'm praying to God when that second round hits. I'm like, God, help me. And I don't know if I said it out loud or if I just said it in my heart, but when I got help me out, there was like a Hellfire missile went overhead, and then another one went overhead, and it hit 2 of the floors of that building and just kind of pancaked the floor in the middle. And we never got shot at by that sniper ever again. So that guy saved my life, whoever that gunner was. So I want to thank him if he's watching this.
Well, I hope he is. And that's angels from above, or if you want to call them devils from above, I don't care what you want to say, or angels from hell, but their air support, man. I'll tell you what, air support is it will always save your ass. When you don't get air support, I can tell you from experience, it's that can almost destroy your morale as well. But man, seeing that, and then you had some Bradleys come on station. I think Gooch was on your team at the end. He was a buddy of mine, and he I remember when he came back, he told me what had happened, and I said Casey Cassavant, him and I were Tab Spec Force at 2nd Ranger Battalion, so Casey was a solid dude. But a lot of people forget about that, and then a lot of people forget that you guys went into Hellfire to get everybody out, and you did. You got everybody out, but a typical State Department, there's a threat. Well, we're going to go back anyway. Yeah, that's what happens, man. It's State Department for you.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this episode with Nick Slatten. We have plenty more to go, much more to talk about with Nick. Quite honestly, he answers some hard questions. We probably agree on some of the things he's proposing, disagree on others, but it was a great interview, and I appreciate him being candid with us. Before we go any further, Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition that is designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. They've been with us for every single show, so you guys got to go out there and support them. FSM.com. Use the promo code BattleLine for 15% off. That is exclusive to our show. One word, BattleLine, FSM.com. You'll get 15% off your order. All different types of ammo. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, BattleLine Tactical, and the BattleLine podcast. And also, we just spoke about the best ammo out there. We got to talk about the best night vision. This is an investment that you guys have to make. I am excited to see these guys at SHOT Show. We're going to be doing an episode live from SHOT Show with the staff there, with Sean Kirk, with Phil Otto, with Dale Sizemore. I'm excited for it. Now you can have the superpower to see in the dark with the Viper Binocular Night Vision System by Photonis Defense, which is the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high-quality night vision capabilities than anyone. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis Defense solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and enthusiasts can rely on the Photonis Defense Viper Binocular to become masters of darkness. The new Viper Binocular system carries the same features and benefits as the Photonis Defense Viper Monocular with a ruggedized body and harnesses the power of the Echo Intensifier tubes, giving you sharper images, reduced halo, and industry-leading ultra-fast auto-gating across the range of dynamic operating conditions. Visit photonisdefense.com. PHOTONIS defense.com for more information, or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer. With that, let's get right back to our interview with Blackwater contractor Nick Slatten.
Well,
so could you get into the actual, ambush that happened? Because here's the thing, when people saw what happened to you guys, the public opinion against you guys was, this is terrible, and then we saw the pictures of the innocent civilians killed, and the narrative is basically these are contractors, heavily armed, and these are just innocent civilians. How did this go down? Why did all these people die? And that's the question I think that was on everyone's mind when you guys were sentenced.
Oh, so you're fast forwarding.
Let's get. I think we should, if we can get into it for sure.
At least, but you can start right at the. Hey, what happened? What you woke up? Hey, do the King Arthur Legends of the Sword. What happened? I want to know from the start when you woke up. What took place?
Let's get into all of it.
So, January 23rd was a major event. Biggest gun battle I'd ever been in. Like I said, there was 1,000 enemy combatants on the ground. The Apaches killed most of them. Obviously, I think they stacked up like 536 bodies was the last count.
Wow.
And so forward from that day, and we're just in an onslaught of 2007. Ask anybody that was in Baghdad in 2007. It was literally hell on earth. So we're fighting. In February, there was a Central Rail Station incident. And then in May, there was another incident. And then also there was two more before the September 16th, the one that we ended up getting in trouble that were significant incidents. So we had a lot of gun battles going on that were not just dudes shot at you a few times. Like, their tactics were evolving and they were getting more and more sophisticated. And so September 16th is the one you're talking about where we got in trouble. And that was basically, we were off work. So we had a day where we were primary. We had a day where we were secondary. And then we had a day where we were training or we were off. And then if they needed a taxi ride to the down Route Irish to buy up, we would take them to the airport. But we were on one of the training days. We had the day off. We were in the chow hall, and we were eating, and there was an explosion, and it was any station this net. We need all support personnel at this grid, and they were calling for help. And they said,
Nick, they being that was the team on site, right? That was the PSD team that was given that call, or was the talk that was giving you guys that call?
"That's right. I believe it was the PSD team
Okay.
was, and it was. They said vehicle borne IED attack is what they said. So we're picturing in our minds these guys got hit. Their motorcade got hit by a car bomb, right? So I'm expecting to go have to recover bodies again. And so we roll out checkpoint 12 and we roll into Nisor Square. And as we're rolling in, they tell us to lock down the square, to send traffic through on one side and to stop traffic on the other so that they have a easy route back into the green zone. So we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden the Iraqi cops start shooting, and then it was game on after that. It was basically like, I don't know if you've been through that circle a lot, but it
Yeah.
is crowded, right? So it's trying to describe it. It's probably like getting in a gunfight in Super Walmart parking lot, you know, as far as cars and people. And you've got Iraqi police who are in mismatched uniforms shooting at us. And so it's just, and there was such a large presence, you know, I don't know if it was just because of the V-bid that had just went off less than a mile away is why there was such a large presence of Iraqi police, but they were just like not at guard booths, not in bunkers. They were just like randomly throughout the crowd. And as soon as one started shooting, you know how it is over there.
And for those who don't know, I mean, what was the reason they started shooting at you guys?
Honestly, I think they panicked. We did an AAR about it, and there was this huge water truck. One side of the circle was under construction because a car bomb had went off in April, and so the tunnel was closed. So used to you could drive under it. So now you've only got like 2 points that you can enter this traffic circle, right? So they had this big city bus, and then they had a water tanker on the other side of the street. So our after actions report was they wanted to kidnap that PSD team because they always see Suburbans rolling in and out. They wanted to block off the street with the water truck, and then they wanted to block off this side of the street with the city bus. And then those guys would have just been trapped in there. And then all they got to do is set their vehicles on there. And then they got a choice, you know, get out of the vehicle or burn alive, right? So
You know, we got there was words and there was scuttlebutt going on that the primary tactical support team, the TST team, had responded, and your team was supposed to sit, and your team leader disobeyed orders and took off anyway. Was there any truth to that? That was from the reports that came out. I've never talked to anybody there that said that, and everybody that I've talked to that has been there, and you're one of them. There's been quite a few that I've been friends with for quite a while, and they're like, well, no, we nobody told us to sit, but nobody told us to go either. And hey, believe me, bro, I get that. I don't know how much, but I've been told to sit, and we disobey orders and go. But were you guys told, hey, don't go? Talk's calling you saying, hey, you can't go, sit here, stay here, and you guys took off? Or you're like, hey, we need to go now because it's all hands on deck? And hey, it broke it. It's fucking like we were soldiers, broken arrow. And I've been through that before too, where everybody goes. So what was it like at the beginning when you're just getting jocked up and your TL is putting out information? Were you getting enough information? Were you kind of not getting enough information? You're like, let's just get on site and see what the hell's going on. Or was it just everybody panic and we're taking off, which that's not a good thing. You don't want to do that either. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think mainly it was the shift lead had tactical command.
Sure.
We get in the vehicles, the TOC doesn't have any say. If your guys are calling, if your guys are calling for help and you go immediately, what are the odds of their survival?
Well, they're a hell of a lot higher. That's why we
Yeah.
lost the ambassador and we lost we lost Sean's because we weren't able to get over there quick enough. And you're right, the shift leader does have tactical control. Was there? But I guess when I say the talk, an RSO, the State Department security officer, was anybody like that telling you guys that, hey, no, you're sitting here and wait until we figure out what's going on, which is normal. That's normal for government shit. Is it right? No, it's not right. But that's government, especially when you get with blue badgers.
We had a shift lead at the time who was a warrior, and he had went whenever any team called for help. And our awards in BW was, we still got to cover teams after we get the principal team back to the green zone safe. We still got to go back out and cover teams, right? So we're working all day, whereas that PSD team, they're off work. And so our awards, they'd be cooking a steak and they'd have beer on ice, when we came in. So it was just like, if my buddy is out there calling me on the radio saying, send everyone, and I've got the ability to go, I'm going.
You're going. I get it. I did too. I completely get it.
Go ahead. That's what anything. I think the prosecution and the government tried to use the fact that there might have been some discrepancy on whether or not he went without permission. But, anytime you get in that vehicle and you're the shift lead, you're in control of the team. So I never doubted any calls any of my shift leaders made. I was a DDM. I was a machine gunner. I did pretty much every job you can do, window licker, all that kind of stuff in that tactical support team, except for driver. They always wanted me where I could shoot. But, I mean, I never doubted any of them. If they said, we're going to fight, so our boys can get off venue, like, roger that, let's go fight.
Well, so, I guess, and that was my next question, was did the prosecution utilize that to try to say that, hey, they disobeyed orders, we're going to, because it happened to us with the FBI, and it just, I get it. And that's why I just want to make sure it's clear, because I know people out there want to hear it from you, and I get where you're coming from. I get the feeling. I've been there. I get it. I've been a shift leader for Team 4. I've been a detail leader that rode with Big Army when Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad was there. I was a detail. I get it, man. And you go. And I think that prosecution using that as a tactic to try to get you guys, just put it simply, get you guys in trouble is a bunch of horse shit. But I did. That's why I wanted to ask you. I wanted to say, did they do that? And if there was a person that talked that did give that call to not go and you guys went, were you wrong? No, fuck. Sorry, YouTube. Sorry about that. YouTube can't cuss. No,
you can. Just not excessively.
That's you're asking a ranger not to cuss that excessively. But no, but yeah, F that. I'm going. And what you said is honestly the answer I expected you to say, and that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. So you take off. And you guys are going there, we leave no man behind. And that's the one thing with Blackwater. We've never left anybody behind, ever. That's never happened. You get there, you get on site. And now when you got on site, did you immediately get in an altercation, or did you get things blocked down? You set up your control points, and then all of a sudden crap happened. And that PSD team, I think people also forget too, what happened to them? Were they not giving you guys calls like, hey, we're clear, let's get because that's what they're supposed to be doing. We're clear, we're out of the kill zone, you guys can come back now. And it never sounded like they gave you the all clear, and that screws you guys up, because now you're just sitting there in no man's land waiting. You basically just put yourself in a kill zone, and you're just waiting to get hit. And that was the part of it. So what happened there with that team? Why didn't they give you the all clear, or did they? And it just got lost in the fog of war.
We told them it was within, most people that testified, and the way I remember it was within 30 seconds of being stopped. Like we had come to a stop.
Gotcha.
And then rounds start coming in, and then more rounds, and then it picks up, and you're like, okay, we're in a real fight here. And then so we advised the PSD team, who another tactical support team had already picked them up, and they were heading to us. Yeah. We advised them, hey, we're in a gunfight. Don't come this way. they go a different route back to the green zone, and they get ambushed on their different route back. So they had multiple ambushes set up because there's only so many ways to get back in the green zone, right?
Yeah.
So ambushes lined up, and that was something that the prosecution didn't like to talk about. Oh yeah, by the way, they got hit by a different ambush on their way back in the PSD.
And Ian,
Yep.
have you ever heard that? That I know that because that's what guys like yourself that were there have told me, but I have never seen that in the media. I've never seen that out there. I don't know, Ian, have you ever seen that there was that second ambush after these guys? Because that has never been put out there. If it has, I've never seen it.
Truthfully, it wasn't on my radar enough to say, at
Okay.
the time. It really wasn't. But what I'm wondering is, as you guys are returning fire, do you see everyone, do you see the faces of the people that you're shooting, or is this just, hey, we have to return fire, we're getting hit from every angle?
Well, that's the thing, about being a DDM. You've got a 10 by optic on a very precise weapon, so you know where all your rounds are going, right? And the Iraqi police, they're supposed to be on our side, and when you see them shoulder their weapon and start sending rounds in your direction, you're kind of faced with a dilemma, like, what do you do? They're supposed to be on the same team. And so it was on, and the machine gunners, they did the best they could in an impossible situation. What's crazy about it is I was going to get on every machine gunner's case about how they didn't shoot enough, about how they didn't fire enough, because they were being very selective. And that's why I was so shocked that this was even a big ordeal, because there was one point when we were like leaving the circle, the vehicle that I was in, it got shot up so bad, rounds skipped off the ground and hit the axle and went up through the radiator. And so the coolant is leaking out within 2 minutes of us being at this stationary position. And the medic that's in the vehicle in front of us, he calls out, he's like, hey, y'all are leaking fluid. And we're like, roger that. And then the vehicle cuts off. So we're dead in the water. It won't crank. And so we had to set up a wall of steel, basically where the follow vehicle comes up and blocks. And then the people that are in the vehicle in front of us gets out and hooks up a tow strap and tows us off the scene. And as we're leaving, the follow vehicle rear gunner, he's chunking out every smoke grenade he has, right, to try to just conceal us, because we're going like 5 miles an hour, and rounds are kicking up all around him on the pavement. And he calls out on the radio. He's got enough presence of mind. He calls out on the radio and he's like, we're taking fire. And then somebody else gets on the radio and they're like, well, shoot back. And he goes, I can't shoot back. I can't see where.
Can't see. Yeah.
He didn't want to just hit people, he wanted to hit people that were actually shooting at us. And you see it all the time in war. The people that lay down, they live. They lay down and they're like, they let you know that they're not a threat, right? The people that are running back and forth and there's guys shooting this way and we're returning fire that way, what do you think's going to happen? That's war. So I really feel like that anybody that had a problem with what happened that day never had to fight for 3.5 hours to recover their fallen comrades, So it was like this big transition from January 23rd to this day. I'm like, this gunfight lasted 5 minutes. The gunfight I was in on January 23rd, that's hours.
Yeah.
Well, the obvious, it did.
You answered it a little bit at the end, but the obvious question people are going to have, which you said at the very beginning, when you said they were being very selective with who they returned fire towards, people are just going to ask, why were so many civilians killed?
Well, if you look at their body count, right? You look at their body count. We filed for information whether any of these alleged victims had any ties to terrorism. And there were ties to terrorism, but 3 of them were such high players that they took them off the body count list immediately. At first, it was 17 they were wanting to charge us with. Then it dropped to 14 because 3 of them were everybody knew they were terrorists. The other 3 that were still on the list, those guys were kind of like lower level players, but they were still bad guys and they knew they were. And so the only bullet or bullet fragment that came out of any body that matched any weapon system, it matched an AK-47. There was a guy running across the road and he got shot in the hip. And he fell down and he tried to say that we did it. And so they took it out at the cache, you know, and took him to the hospital. They cut it out and they kept it. And when the FBI analyzed it, it was an AK-47 bullet. So they gave it back to the guy and he lost it. That's what he said at trial.
And
So
that's that came out during the trial, right? That was evidence at the trial.
The only bullet they recovered out of anybody, bullet, you know. So I really feel like there was an Army gun battle that happened about 30 minutes prior to ours south, and then it's a war zone, right? You got all these bodies coming to the same hospital, and the lead Iraqi investigator who got put in charge of it, he's got ties to Jam. He's like a Iranian terrorist. So my jury can't know that the guy that conducted the investigation is a terrorist.
Wow.
so
Yeah.
And then, you know, our State Department, I'll give them credit because, you know, they were tripping because it was on CNN, like, you know, 45 minutes, 30 minutes later, it was on the TV. They're tripping because, but I was like, you know, look on a map. And they looked on a map, and we, you know, members of Raven 2-3 was like, this is where we're getting shot at from. You don't believe us? Go out there. They went out there the very next day, and you know what they found at those exact locations? They found expended shell casings. So they said it's a good shoot. They cleared us, you know, and that wasn't good enough in the political arena. And then the feds come in 3 weeks later.
Yeah, it's
and they adopt a terrorist, an Iraqi colonel that's in charge of that circle. They adopt his investigation as the gospel truth. And if you look at all their statements, all the witness statements, they said every one of our vehicles opened fire, every machine gunner. And that's not true. Like, you can ask anybody that was out there. And I think it's funny, you know, like the body count just kept going up because they ran ads on Iraqi television. If you were hurt, or if you know somebody who was hurt or killed on this day in this circle, come to the green zone and we'll give you money. So
it sounds like the marine water, contaminated water commercials you see. Yeah, but how many were said that were killed? How many were KIA on the Iraqi side? Was it 17? Is that right? Is that what you said?
17 at first, and then they dropped it to 14.
And I just want everybody to know out there, in a gunfight in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Yemen, off the coast of Somalia, in a big gunfight, I hate to tell you this, people, when there's people everywhere running around, that number's not, I'm not trying to downplay human life. Believe me, I'm not. That's not a large number, especially when you got bad guys that are embedding themselves within the populace and using them as cover and trying to shoot you. And I know that might seem, and I don't give a shit if you think I'm a terrible person for saying that. I'm just being honest with you. It's not. If you guys had shot 100 people, dude, way too. Okay, you bloodlust. You kept pulling the trigger, knocked that. Yeah, you're in the fault. But 14 people, and you're getting shot at, and it's in a crowded. And for those that have not been in East Shore Square, yeah, it's a freaking quagmire. It is. It's just people everywhere. You should, and the prosecution, I think, did you wrong. I know they did you wrong at the very, and I said it on the show before. All right, if you're going to do anything to you, okay, then let them go, just fire them, let them go their jobs, but they don't go to prison. It's war. You don't send people to prison for defending themselves in war. But yeah, if you want to show, let's show some power, okay, fire them then. They'll lose their clearances. They go home. Well, so let's get into that. I know we got, unless Ian's got some more and he wants to know, we'll come back to the firefight. You done? Did you go home? And I can't remember. I know my buddy told me, but I just can't remember what he said. did you stay there? Did they get you out a couple days after? Were you there? Did you finish your contract and then you get home, and what happens? Or, well, first of all, what happens after? Then how long were you there before you went home? What's going on while you're still in Iraq? And then you get home, what happens? I guess 3 different questions there.
So it was pretty quick for me. I had always said that if the chain of command doesn't have my back anymore, or my brother, I'm out. Like, I don't care what they're paying me. So, like, I felt like when the feds picked it up, they were basically inserting themselves when the State Department investigation was good enough before, and they cleared us on this shoot as well. Now all of a sudden they're not good enough. We need a whole outside investigative unit, you know. And the State Department people weren't our friends, you know. They didn't like us.
Right? I know. I know. I know exactly what you're talking about. I do know that.
It's not like they were trying to help us out or hook us up or anything. So I was like, I was done. And it was 2009, I think, when they started talking about, you know, prosecuting us and all of this. But a judge who was actually, I think he was a Clinton appointed judge. He was a very fair judge, though. He wanted to see all the evidence, even the classified stuff, right? He wanted to see everything, and he read it all. And he said, with regards to me, he asked the prosecutor straight up, he goes, "That's his job, is it not?" And they said, "Yes." And so they had to dismiss it against me for lack of evidence. And so a couple of weeks later, you know, the judge is mad because there's all these Brady violations. He caught them, you know, with their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, legally. And they were violating my brother's constitutional rights and doing all kinds of wild stuff that you're not allowed to do. And so he just dismissed it outright against all of us. And so that was a big international thing. And then you get the current president, who was vice president, you know, he inherited it. And then he's like promising them that he's going to appeal our dismissal. He said that dismissal is not an acquittal. So I knew when I heard the vice president of the United States say that I was going to prison, basically, I knew I was hit. So it was just a matter of time, you know, before they finally took us to trial and convicted us.
And what's the feeling like when you hear life in prison?
Me, I got to a point where I had already accepted the fact that I was going to go to prison because they weren't letting my jury hear all the truth. So I was ready for it. And, you know, you want to talk about broken, they thought I was crazy. You know, they thought I was like Jason Bourne or something. So they put me in solitary confinement. And I'm just calling out to God the entire time. And, you know, he just gives me peace that passes understanding while I'm in there. And he lets me know that I'm not going to do all this time, and that the reason why I'm locked up is because I wasn't following him when I was back from the war. I kind of did my own thing. I ran down a rabbit hole of like alcohol and prescription meds and just, you know, and was just really in a dark place. So going to prison actually saved my life, you know. So and it restored my relationship with God. And a lot of people that I came in contact with, that's what I would focus on. That's how you do a life sentence. You don't focus on your charge, you know, like, yeah, of course you study the law and you learn about your appeal and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't think about that I was doing the rest of my life in prison. I thought about the guys that didn't know Jesus. And so I would talk to the guys that didn't know Jesus. And it's funny, one of the guys was a pagan and like a notorious guy, famous throughout the prison system. And he ended up getting saved. You know, he used to make fun of me because I was a Christian, but we worked out together. Like me, because, you know, we worked out together, and he was just like, he's like, "You're too smart to be a Christian," or whatever. And finally, I just told him, I was like, pray and ask God to prove that he exists. And about a week later, he comes up and he's like, I want to start reading the Bible. And when we got to the New Testament, he got saved, and I'm still in contact with him to this day. So I never would have met that man. He was 19 when he got locked up, and he was 47 when I met him. So
Jeez. Did you hold on to any hope that a pardon was going to happen? Because I believe prior to you guys getting pardoned, right, there were quite a few military guys who got a pardon from Trump. I wanted some of them, and we can get in. I know Chris is limited time. Some of them I entirely disagree with, and I can get into that with you. Some of them I think, like our friend Gary Brugman, that was a Border Patrol incident, but I totally believe should have gotten that pardon. First Lieutenant Michael Bahena, definitely deserving of a pardon, but I believe a few of those were before you. So when Trump was in office, and especially when he was handing out pardons to other military guys, either wrongfully or rightfully accused of war crimes, was it in the back of your mind that like I might get out of here?
No. So how that came about was it was after my third trial. I had been convicted and not sentenced yet, but I knew what my sentence would be. It'd be life in prison. I was waiting on a sentencing date, and I was in this little jail in Virginia, and they had a riot. They had me in this gang unit, and they had a riot in this gang unit, and they set the microwaves on fire, and they ran the cops out of the unit. And so my buddies were like, "What are you going to do, Nick?" I was like, "I'm going to my bunk and sitting on my bunk." I was like, "I'm going in. I get my Bible and I'm sitting on the cell, in the cell, because I already know what time it is. I know what's about to happen." They broke the sprinklers. Water's coming in, so I like roll up a blanket and put it under my door. And the riot team comes in, and they hit us with flashbangs, and they hit us with tear gas canisters, and they drag out the people that are participating in the riot. And so I'm stuck in there, and they don't let us out for about 7 days. And they bring us trays that are in styrofoam and hand it to us through our bean slots. It's like a little slot in the door that they can open and just hand you stuff. And there's no food in the tray. So it's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You might be lucky to get like this much food, like a tiny little. So they were starving us. And I'm in there and I'm reading the Bible. Every day I read Psalms 91. And in verse 3, surely he will save you from the fowler's snare. And that's in the New International Version that I have. And so I was like, that made me so mad that day. I was like, surely he will save you from the fowler's snare. I was like, that is where I'm at, when. And I heard, just like I'm talking to y'all, I heard a voice, and it wasn't like, Nick, it was just a normal voice, and it said, Slatten, pack your stuff. You got a presidential pardon. And I was like, I started laughing, I was like, man, I'm going crazy. I ain't had enough to eat. So days later, they let us make a phone call, and I called my sister, and she's like, have you heard? And I was like, heard what? And she goes, well, the New York Times reported that President Trump was considering pardoning soldiers accused of war crimes, and it mentioned you by name. It mentioned me and Gallagher and Golston together in the same article. So that was the very first mention of a pardon, and I told her immediately, I was like, God told me I'm getting a pardon,
But
And
was any of that in the back of your head prior to that? Because obviously the pardon happened because there were guys fighting on your behalf, which I know, we have limited time, just like the same way you're fighting on behalf of Sergeant Calvin Gibbs, which I know you want to get into before we, end this.
And we still got about 15. I'm good. 15 more minutes. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that you at least, because I know you said this was important to you, but the point being, I mean, the pardon happened, and I totally get the religious faith of it, but there were a ton of guys back home fighting for you guys. And I mean, were any of them contacting you saying like, we're in the president's ear, this may happen?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was everybody. I mean, it's a small community, if I don't know you, somebody that I know knows you, so it got into the president's ear, I think, fairly quickly when he was that trend of pardoning, like you said, people that had made decisions in combat. And so it was just yeah, I mean, I just knew it was going to happen. And there were so many people that just wrote me letters all the time. Like, I got letters from everywhere in America you can think of. I got letters from England, New Zealand, Australia, France, like you name it. Like, I was getting letters from different countries. So, and they were all like, we believe you're innocent. Like, we believe that you did the best you could in a bad situation, you know? So it was just very encouraging. And yeah, President Trump's awesome. You know, he had courage to do what no one else would have done. You know, he didn't
Yeah.
care what it looked like. He read the facts, and he did what, you know, what a man would do. You know, he did what was right.
Yeah, and that's it's war. I just kept hey, it's war. It's war. What do you expect him to do? Um, there was, and I wanted to get there. There was one of those guys on your team that turned on you and kept a plea deal. I forgot his name. I don't. That's not even worth probably remembering. But you didn't even mention it because I could give two shits about his name. But when he did that, man, because you don't do that to each other. And I guess why did he cop a plea? Was he that scared that he was going to go to prison? And he just said, you know what, I'm going to make up shit. I forget his name, but it was in the papers. Yeah, he's giving up information on Nick and Raven 23 and saying that they did it, and that was one of the prosecution's big things against you. Did it feel a bit like betrayal when that was going on, or did you just go into numb mode, like, okay, I'm just gonna turn my emotions off, and
So
whatever happens?
so what I would say about anyone that was against us that was on our team, there was only um, three that were like dead set
I
against us.
I only know one. I only know of one that I heard of, and I ain't gonna say his damn name.
Yeah, so out of the 19, there was only three that had a problem, right?
Okay.
And I love and I forgive every one of them, you know, and I want the best for all of them. I don't judge anybody for what they do in war because, like you said, it's war. So, so I don't care if you're a coward hiding behind somebody or if you're fighting back, right? Like, I leave that stuff in the past. I love and I forgive all those guys, you know.
Yes. You're a bigger man than me, brother. You definitely are. But having God in your corner,
But
that's what.
you know,
Go ahead.
he just says we have to love those guys. We have to love them and we have to forgive them. So
And yeah, I just about forgiving people and forgiving your past and people in the past. And that's how I've let go a lot of my anger. That's how I let go dang near the majority of it is finding God again. But yeah, but it's amazing, Ian, at this point in your life, in my opinion, and you got a good head on your shoulders. And are you? I don't even know if you're married. Are you married? Or
have I got married when I got out of prison. She wrote me letters the whole time I was locked up.
no way.
Came and visited me, yeah, and we got a little girl.
No
Got her.
shit. That's awesome. That's freaking awesome, man. Yeah, and she likes you, even though you're, yeah, I mean, we got the thinness on you. I know you're a bigger dude, got the tiny head, big neck. I'm giving you shit, man. You're awesome. Um, but having you on, maybe we're going time. We're going to talk about Calvin, but moving on in the future, father, husband now. What else is on the horizon outside of that? I know are you guys all writing different books, or are you all writing one together, kind of like we did, where we all got together as a team and we said, hey, we're going to put it all, because we just felt it was, hey, the team was there. We got to tell it as a team. But with that is because I know y'all are doing projects now, which you should be doing. You should be. People should know this. And if you talk about God a lot, people should definitely know it. But what's the plan? What's the plan with the team, or are y'all going your separate ways?
Yeah, it's Raven 23 Productions.
That's what
So we all united. You can check us out, raven23productions.com, and it's basically just our merchandise. We've got these shirts, and we've got cigars for sale, and then the book will be on there eventually. The book's in progress, and it's going to tell all kinds of things, like a
well,
lot of the class. Um, it doesn't need to be classified anymore. So a lot of that stuff will be at least a general watered down declassified version of it, and a lot of it will be like the actual raw classified intelligence that proved that we were innocent.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I could easily go another hour talking about this, and I would, but Chris is limited on time. But I know that the reason, honestly, the main reason you kept conveying to me that you wanted to come on, so I want to make sure we at least give this a little bit of time, was that, as we know, there are other guys serving the same way that you did. Time for things, some of them probably justified, some of them not. But I know the guy that you're fighting on behalf of is Staff Sergeant Calvin Gibbs, freecalvingibbs.com. Do you want to talk a little bit about his case and why this is important to you guys?
And we got 15 minutes, brother. So you got time. Don't rush it. Let's get everything out that you need to say.
So Calvin Gibbs, he was in the Maywan district, and anybody that's ever been to Afghanistan knows that that's a pro-Taliban region, right? So I just want to paint the scene of how he got to where he was. A squad leader in an infantry line unit in the Maywan district steps on a landmine and dies when they're doing village stability operations, which village stability operations work very well in regions that support the United States. In regions that do not support the United States, like the Maywan district, they don't work so well, right? You step on land, get blown up with bombs all the time, you get shot at all the time, right? So Gibbs was an import sergeant into this line infantry platoon, and he was the kind of guy that you would want as a squad leader, right? He was a hard charger, and he was a warrior. And basically, he is locked up for killing someone that shot at him, and that's it. I mean,
Are you familiar with First Lieutenant Michael Behenna? Because I feel like that's a very similar situation. He was another guy who was pardoned.
Yeah, I heard of his situation as well. But Gibbs's situation, they've got him charged with 3 murders, and 2 out of the 3 murders, he wasn't even at the scene when those individuals were killed. And all of these individuals, by that point, we knew who the bad guys were. And so they all came back as members of the Taliban. And basically, if you're in the Maywan district and you're able to fight and you're a male, guess what you're going to be? You're going to be a member of the Taliban. You don't have. So he's locked up, and the guys are Taliban that are dead. He's been locked up since 2010. And we've been fighting really hard to get legislation passed that's called the Warfighter Protection Act. And basically what it does is it grants amnesty to everyone who's in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan and other places that we have fought the war on terror, so that give them all amnesty, even the ones that lied and testified against Gibbs that are in prison, right? Give them all amnesty, let them go home. Like, the war's over. I'm for it. I'm for letting everybody out, even the ones that did do bad. Like, I'm for it, because it's like we've always done that. We did it in World War II. We did it in Vietnam. We've done it in every single war. When the war is over, let our guys go home. I mean,
I would say, wouldn't that just set a bad precedent, though, when we are back in war, that anything goes? And I mean, you can't have that.
Well, I mean, I think that you got to ask yourself, are you a country that believes in judgment, or you're a country that believes in mercy? And we've released 5,000 members of the Taliban who we knew were participating actively against our troops in combat operations, and we released them back to the battlefield. I mean, we gave the whole country back to the Taliban. So, like,
is that a good thing?
No, I'm saying that why would we keep our own guys locked up if we're going to let?
It's hypocritical, is what we're.
I'm saying. I mean, I get the double standard thing, but I think the idea of just no one is a war criminal is a pretty dangerous precedent as well. I mean, that's why I was talking about the other guys who were pardoned as well. And I'll give you, we could talk about all of them, really. But the one that was the craziest to me, that's just the most clear cut, was Major Matt Goldstein, in that, and it's Major, right? Is it Major?
I don't know if he was a captain or a major.
But
He made a captain at the
Goldstein
time.
basically did something that was considered a war crime and was he was scot-free. He got away with it. He would have been totally fine. And then he went on Fox News and admitted to things that he did.
He incriminated himself
when you incriminate yourself, you have to be locked up. I mean, so that was one where I said this guy shouldn't have been pardoned, and that's my opinion.
And you know, Nick, I think war. If you're a good person, if you have virtue, war will magnify that. It's going to magnify that virtue you have. If you're a terrible, terrible person, war will magnify that as well. If you don't believe me, watch that Combat Obscure. You'll see how people don't have virtue, or it's magnified. And I get what you're saying, bro. I do. But I don't think everybody thinks like you. And I don't think that everybody, I saw some bad shoots when I was over there too. And we handled it ourselves. We handled it in house. It's like, motherfucker, you didn't do that shit again, or I'm going to beat the living shit out you. And it worked, the old school way of doing it. But that thing is, it's so big now, and we can't do the things to youngsters like we used to get them to fall in line, or else we get in trouble. So I don't know if we should. And that's my opinion. If you have not done, if you've fought in this war and you killed the enemy and you're getting reprimanded for it, no, you shouldn't be in prison. If you kill somebody and discriminate and murder them, you're murdering them. War or not, it's murder. That's my opinion. And God's going to judge you regardless. So, but we don't need to argue. I mean, we can if you want. We can if you want to argue about it. But I don't want to take it away from Calvin, because I don't think Calvin did murder anybody at all. And it's horse shit that he's in prison. I didn't know he's in prison that long either. I had no idea. So what do we do, man? What do we need to do to aside from to help get him out? And is it too far gone, or do we just keep fighting and people keep giving? What can they do? Again, for guys like Calvin, when they've been in prison now for 14 years, and there's no Trump in sight right now to let him out.
There might be in a year.
Go to freecalvingibbs.com, and there's a sample letter on that website on how to write your congressman and your senator. I know it sounds like it don't work, but it does.
That's what I'm going to ask you. Does that shit work, or did the senator just put it in a pile and it doesn't do anything?
You get enough people upset about something, guess what happens in our country? It changes.
Yeah, you're right there. I can't argue with you there, man.
We got to speak, and we've got to tell people that Calvin Gibbs is innocent and he's serving a bogus life sentence. You think about that. And our soldiers, our war fighters, our men and women that go over there and they have to put themselves in harm's way, they shouldn't have to choose between a casket or a prison cell. You think people hesitate on the machine gun, and then what happens? They get blown up, right?
Or they're dead, and then their squad's dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Car drives right into them. And so it's like, but if they're wrong, they're scared they're going to go to prison. Like, we're already setting a bad example. Like you said, you catch somebody doing something out of line, you're like, hey, you're out of here. You're not a soldier no more. That's the worst you do to them, right? I'm not saying
you can do this. There's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with doing that.
We called it wall-to-wall counseling. That's what we.
That's exactly. Put them in the squad room, close the door, we'll get it settled. That's what you do.
But I mean, to lock Calvin Gibbs up for actually killing members of the Taliban,
yeah,
crazy. He got actively shot at. The prosecutors withheld that information that he got actively shot at, and there's only 4 guys in his platoon that are against him, right? How many people are in a platoon?
If it was a normal platoon, you could have 3 squads of 10 to 15. So you can have a lot of guys. It depends on what size the platoon is, man. Not even counting the machine gun attachments.
Well, let's just say he had 30 or 40 people, right?
40, yeah.
Guys out of any platoon, I guarantee you could take 3 or 4 guys out of any platoon and they'd have something bad to say about you, right?
No, of course.
But what about the rest of them? There were guys that were like, not only did Cal not do it, this is morally wrong that y'all are like pressuring him just to take a deal. Like, they got threatened with prosecutions themselves, and some of them got run plumb out of the Army with like less than honorable discharges, you know, because they wouldn't cooperate with ongoing investigations. So it was like, it took me about 5 minutes of reading what is not classified to figure out that this guy was just an import squad leader doing the best he could with a mission that made no sense. Basically, they're riding, giving money to people who are pro-Taliban and giving food to people who are pro-Taliban, and then they're getting blown up on the way out. So it's like, what were they even doing? You know, like, and how are you going to hold anybody accountable in that kind of conditions? You know, it's like, when you get shot at, it's over. All bets are off.
Yeah,
it's
no,
like,
it is. And I'll tell you, I think I know me personally, I know guys, a lot of guys I've been around. I've seen some bad shoots, but I've also seen a lot of guys just like with that machine gunner on your team for, I've like, man, should have shot more. Why didn't we? We should, and we were in the right to do it. So we've been there, especially contractors, we get a bad rap. But we're the most non-indiscriminate shooters on the planet. We make sure, and I even said it even that night in Libya. I said, I ain't shooting because I ain't killing a kid. There's kids in those houses. And I wanted to light up that house because that's where they were running into, in and out of. Like, oh, I got this 46. I'm going to tear it up. No, there's kids in there. I can't shoot it. We put ourselves in more danger by not shooting than we ever have by shooting too much, aside from, you know, whoever president and vice president in office is. And it comes to make, with all these stories we're talking about, it makes me realize that we must have the worst defendant attorneys on the planet. That the prosecutors keep winning these cases that have no merit. And what are the attorneys on the defendant sides doing? Are they even doing their damn jobs, or are they are they culpable? Are they part of it?
Well, they can't do their job if you're a prosecutor and you hide evidence that helps the defendant, if you hide exculpatory evidence. So like, no one knows that there's a saw gunner that saw the same thing Calvin Gibbs saw, that there was a guy shooting at him, and the saw gunner left cover because he couldn't see where the dude was. He got behind the same cover Gibbs was, and he shot the guy too. So it was like they were taking fire, and the saw gunner did his job. He ran over and he helped Gibbs shoot the guy, but no one knows that. That never. They threatened that man with prosecution if he didn't keep his mouth shut.
I was going to say, you've definitely convinced me that people need to advocate for Calvin Gibbs. I'm going to be honest. I'm not on the side of the amnesty bill that you're, pushing. I'm sure there's other people in the audience who are going to agree with you. And I mean, that's the great thing, man. People are going to agree. People are going to disagree. I love the fact that when we have people on, there's no agenda, myself or Chris are pushing. That's why we just have on people who have been there and done that, which you certainly have. So yeah, the website that you wanted to push out there is freecalvingibbs.com. You could have more information there. Raven23productions.com. And then you're not on any social media yourself, right? Just that?
Just that.
Cool.
And when the book comes out, and
we'll have you back, man, because I feel like we just scratched the surface.
Definitely. And I'm telling you what, just stick together, brother, and stick to your guns. As just from experience on books that may put the government in a bad light, stick to your guns, man, because they're going to push, and they're going to say, "No, you can't say this. You can't. Nope. To hell with you. This is what we're doing." And don't let them push you around. I mean, if it's to change a little bit of a name of a local, or okay, screw it, we'll change the name of a local, but we ain't changing anything else. And you guys doing it together gives you a hell of a lot of credibility than trying to do it individually. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing it together.
God is good. I couldn't ask for a group of brothers. They are steadfast.
Yeah, even Rob. Even Slatten, man, he's all right. Yeah. No, he's good. He's a good person, bro. He's good. You guys are all did what you needed to do, and appreciate you talking about your faith too. But next time you come on the show, stop saying the sir shit. All right, I'm not that old, man. I'm only 52.
I'm probably you and I are probably right around the same age, right? How old are you, bro?
40.
Yeah.
You're 40, all right. So it's not. I'm 37.
So knock that
just
crap
about
off.
the same age.
Yeah,
But yeah,
man.
once again, guys, check out raven23productions.com. We'll do a part 2 when the book comes out. Hopefully get some of the other guys on, because I know Paul Slough, for example, he wanted to come on. He just said he couldn't at the moment. So at some point, hopefully we'll have him back on.
Oh
There's
shit. Yeah.
usually a
Did I
few.
say Rob? I meant Paul. I'm sorry. Paul's the ugly guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I wasn't
sorry.
sure,
Why did I say Rob? I'm thinking of something else. No,
but
it's Paul
anyway,
that's
I
ugly.
was
Yeah.
gonna say next week, guys, I'm really psyched for this. We have Edsel Dope coming back for a second time. The first time we had Edsel Dope on was one of the biggest shows that we've done. Whenever we have rock shows like these, do really well because Blabbermouth will pick it up, and
I wasn't on, so that helps. It helps when I'm not on. The shows are so yeah. So
no,
Nick,
but
this
it's
show's
just an
not going to do
interesting
shit.
thing that that the rock shows get picked up by a ton of websites. It's just the way that it works.
Doesn't it work
metal...
that the Rob here I say Rob again, that the rock shows actually help each other out, but the 2A community, when it comes to media and social media, they don't do shit for each other.
I
Isn't it
actually
awesome?
spoke about this with Jack Murphy at the Team House party, because it is interesting that that stuff doesn't get picked up. I don't know why, but the rock stuff does. So Edsel Dope will be back on, and possibly Tony Campos of Static X, legendary bass player, also plays in Fear Factory. The man has done it all. So I'm really psyched for that. And then the last thing I wanted to say to you guys, of course, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, leave us a comment on YouTube, like the show, subscribe, all that stuff helps. But we've been talking about upping the game of the show in terms of quality, because I know you guys loved last week that we were able to do an in-studio interview. And I love when we're able to do those. If the budget allows, when we get to that point, that's the great thing about living in, near New York City for me, is that everyone comes through here, whether it's rock artists doing a tour or, people doing Fox News. They're in that area. So I love to do in studio. But in the meantime, the reason we're on Zoom, even though Zoom kind of sucks, quite honestly, was because we were using Squadcast for a while, which does shoot in high res. And Chris and I are both on high res cameras, but Zoom basically lowers the quality of everything. And when we did an interview with John Keys a while back, Zoom did not capture his video, or Squadcast did not capture his video. So at the time, I was like, we can't deal with this. I've been speaking to people about Riverside, and hopefully we're going to switch over to Riverside, because I've been hearing great things, including from John Rain Waters, who we've had on the podcast. He has had no issues. Any issues he's had, they'll work out. So to make a long story short, we're going to be upping the quality one way or the other. But it's on you guys. Support our sponsors, support the show, subscribe, spread the word. That's what keeps us going.
And well, amen. Then since you mentioned Static X, I had a lighthearted question for Nick here. You guys, what are you listening to before you head out of the green zone, dude? And it better not be some newfangled. You guys better be listening to some headbanging stuff like we used to, or I'm going to think a hell of a lot less of you. Okay. So what were you listening to get ready to go out the gate?
I don't think we were listening to anything.
Oh man,
that could be intense too, though, right?
Time January 23rd happened, we were all so numb.
Well, not you're QRF, you're punching out the gate. I get you, but when you got time, to get prepped up, you don't have music playing anymore like we used to. When not when you're QRFing. I'm saying when you got time to prep and you're just getting ready to get out the gate for a normal day.
All that hard, like y'all are talking about Static X and all the Slipknot and all,
which by the way is all guests we've had on the show.
Right.
And the first time we had Edsel Dope on, I got to speak to him about the fact that Dope, their songs like Die Motherfucker Die were played at Gitmo during interrogations. And unlike some artists, Edsel Dope was like, I love it, man. He was like, I'm all for it. If it helped these guys do their job, God bless, so it was cool interviewing him about that. So I'm psyched to have him on for a second time, but that's cool to hear, man. Thanks again, Nick. And like I said, we will do this again when the book comes out.
All right. God bless you guys, Lord willing. And thank you so much.
Hey, God bless
man.
You too, bro.
Appreciate it.
You stay safe, man. Just keep spreading the word, okay? You're doing good things, man.
God is good. You have a good one.
That's all for this episode of Battleline Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at BattleLinePod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.